Hello, forward thinkers, visionaries, AI enthusiasts, and those who are discovering their place within the AI landscape. I'm truly delighted to welcome you to the Women in AI Shaping a Better Future, hosted by ClearObject. My name is Heidi Knowles. I am the new head of growth here at ClearObject, and I recently joined with the unique experience of being at the innovation powerhouse, Google, for over 3.5 years. I'm thrilled now to be helping ClearObject with their brand awareness and growing our footprint within the AI space. ClearObject is a digital transformation company providing custom AI solutions to a variety of industries, such as manufacturing, transportation, financial services, retail, and many more. Since the population of women here at ClearObject is currently less than 10%, we saw a great opportunity to discuss where women stand in this rise of AI. And we wanted to gather people together like yourselves in a discussion about how we can include, protect, and commend women in a field where data is being produced more rapidly than ever. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and amazed as we dive headfirst into Women in AI, shaping a better future together. So fasten your virtual seatbelts and get excited for the individuals whose leadership and expertise have left a profound impact on the AI landscape. At this time, I'd like to pass to our moderator, Maureen Clough. She is the host of the hit podcast, It Gets Late Early, a show she created after discovering she was considered old in a youth-obsessed tech world, even before she even hit 40. Her show brings guests such as the New York Times best-selling author and writer for HBO's hit comedy, Silicon Valley, Dan Lyons. Career coaches, industry peers, and leaders, and personalities such as Ross Pomerantz, aka the corporate bro, to discuss what it's like to get older in tech world. Head to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast to check out Maureen's website. I'll also show you a link in the chat for everyone to see.
Heidi, thank you so much. You guys, I'm so happy to be here. I mean, we all know that the future is both female and AI. So, I mean, wow, I'm really, really pumped to be a part of this discussion and be joined by the esteemed panelists that we have here today who are actually doing the important work in AI. So, I mean, let's just dive in. I'd say, let's start off by introducing all of our panelists, and maybe each of them can give us a little quick personal fact about what they do in their personal lives, as well as what they're actually doing on the day-to-day in their jobs, because AI is something we're all still really learning about, right? So we want to have a little bit of a working guide on what you actually do. So first off, let's start with Jane Paek. Jane has been working in Silicon Valley for over 20 years now. She currently leads Google Cloud's customer engineering team in San Francisco, helping globally renowned digital native customers achieve the very best via Google Cloud Platform, GCP. We love an acronym in the tech industry. So welcome, Jane. I'm so pleased you're here. Give us a little bit more about you and what you do on the daily.
Sure. So Maureen, thank you for the awesome welcome. I manage the customer engineering team in San Francisco, and what that means is we help customers really understand what Google Cloud Platform is capable of providing from a technology standpoint. We're also privileged to be among a number of customers who are really at the forefront of AI. So we have customers who are creating the actual language models that are behind the AI interface. We're also behind the customers who are going to leverage multiple different language models to provide AI experiences to many of us out in the field. So it's a fascinating and timely place to be at Google as we work with these customers on really understanding what AI is capable for the next generation. In terms of my personal life, I have 2 kids. I live in Mountain View. One of the things that's unique about me is that I took a 7-year sabbatical from work before coming back. So that's kind of different in the space of where you're right. Like there seems to be this sense of, oh, even 1 year out of tech is considered like, wow, how are you ever going to come back? So that's been, it's been a very interesting experience. And through that, I realized like how many wonderful allies there are and how valuable an awesome network is to help you forward into whatever adventures you want to go into.
I love that, Jane. And I think it's really important to talk openly about those breaks that we sometimes really need. And I know it can be very challenging to leave even on maternity leave. You have, for lack of a better term, career FOMO. So I'm so happy that you've been able to get back into it and you've worked with the allies that you have to continue on in your career and do great things. So looking forward to hearing from you. Awesome. So next, let's move on to Kalina. Kalina is the Director of Visualization Program at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications, NCSA, another acronym for you, where she provides leadership and management of strategic directions and activities for data visualization. She's also the Director of the NCSA Advanced Visualization Lab, an Academy Award nominated team, wow, that's pretty cool, that produces some cinematic scientific visualization videos that have been seen by millions of people worldwide through documentaries, IMAX films, and museums. Welcome, Kalina.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here. So happy to speak a little bit more about what I do on the day-to-day. I kind of wear these two hats. As lead of the visualization program office, I oversee 4 visualization teams that have different kinds of expertise, ranging from creating data visualization software that other people can use that are often web-based, to creating data dashboards, to creating these kind of museum quality film style visualizations. So in my role as the Advanced Visualization Lab Director, I've been doing some AI work within that capacity. So even though my primary field is data visualization, my team and I have developed a few machine learning models to help with the visualization process, to help automate things, to speed things up, do a little bit of AI assisted design. So I am really happy to talk about some of those efforts. And even though my primary field is visualization, and I consider myself a viz person instead of an AI person, we certainly do use AI, and I've personally contributed to several machine learning models. So happy to be here, happy to talk about all of that. On a personal note, the exciting thing going on in my life right now is I'm about to move to Salt Lake City in a couple of months, where I'll be going to the University of Utah to pursue a PhD in computer science and computer graphics. So,
oh my gosh,
going through a
wow.
big change right now.
That's amazing. You're going to Silicon Slopes. You'll have to let us know how it goes. And a PhD, that's fantastic. Good for you.
Thank you.
So happy to hear. Awesome. Our next panelist is someone who actually is a practitioner in something that's near and dear to my heart. Carly Wild has been a sales and partnerships professional with about 14 or a little over 14 years of experience in technology, which includes cloud, AI, and machine learning. Having spent the last 10 years between AWS and cloud, Carly is absolutely passionate about all things cloud, partnerships, and tech diversity, equity, and inclusion. We share a lot there. Carly, welcome.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks so much, Heidi and ClearObject, for putting this together. And I'm really honored to be on a panel with such incredible and talented other women in tech. A little about me. So right now at Google Cloud, I've been here for about 5 years. I work with North service partners on their AI ML practice. So take, for example, I work really closely with ClearObject and their team, who is an AI Google Cloud partner, developing solutions around AI ML. It doesn't have to be just AI ML, but that's kind of like the lead into it. And there's been a lot of amazing, incredible work around generative AI that I've been involved with. We're at the very tip of the spear, but really, again, just working with a set of partners to make sure that their solutions are ready, their go-to-market and sales side of things. And it's been really cool seeing how we're scaling Google Cloud solutions through the partner ecosystem. I love it. I'm not very technical, but I love talking to people and I love the sales side of things. And then as far as personal, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. It's kind of tucked away in the corner, Western North Carolina. It's known for beer and bears, and there's another bee in there somewhere. But it's a really cool town. And I have a 1.5-year-old, so that's really what keeps me busy. Other than that, I like spending time outside and, just kind of getting out when I can.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Carly. That's really great. And beer and bears. Wow. That's quite the commercial for Asheville. I'll have to get there. Sounds fantastic. I'm maybe more prone to being into one than the other, but nonetheless, anyhow, welcome aboard and thanks for being here. So next we have Sonya Snellenberger, and Sonya is the Senior Director of Industry Partnerships at Conexus, Indiana, where she leverages a vast professional network to identify and build relationships and grow partnerships. She's currently helping Indiana-based manufacturing and logistics companies embrace new technologies such as AI. Sonya serves as the chair of the Women in Manufacturing Indiana chapter and as a member of the Don Woods Foundation Grants Committee. Welcome, Sonya.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. So I am maybe a little bit of the oddball here. My role isn't specifically in AI itself, but at Conexus, Indiana, we support the 9,000 plus advanced manufacturing and logistics companies in the state of Indiana. And our role is to really help manufacturers and logistics organizations embrace digital adoption, which obviously includes AI. And bring along workforce with that. So in my kind of day-to-day, I spend a lot of time in manufacturing and logistics facilities, getting an understanding of what opportunities they're taking advantage of in terms of tech adoption, digital adoption, and what some of the challenges and barriers are that they face, how we navigate that on a state and regional level. Oh, and then in my personal life, I'm located in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Actually, Carly, I was just down by you as of yesterday. I was in Abington, Virginia, because I like bears, not deer. No, I was hiking, but I spend a lot of time outdoors. I'm a runner and a cyclist, and my favorite thing to tell people is I'm totally a Disney adult, and I have no shame about it.
I love that. That's fantastic. And I also love that you aren't specifically in AI, because guess what? AI is something that you don't have to actually be working in AI to experience and to use to take yourself to the next level. So very happy to have you here, Sonya. Welcome. And I'm so glad you didn't encounter any of those bears on that walk, or hike, excuse me. But thank you for being here. Great. All right. So I know that everybody, as they were coming in, hopefully had the chance to answer a poll that we had up. So let's go ahead and look at those results if we can pull them up. Can we see those? Hopefully.
I think you have to go to the polls to see them. You can see the votes.
Okay. So it's user error. Shocking for me.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I see. I'm not actually, oh, wait, I think oh, great. Okay. So as everybody was filing in, we were asking you a question about how you were connected to AI innovation. And so we had some votes in here. It looks like the top was, I work for an AI company in a non-technical role. Non-technical, love it. But yes, let's, thank you for actually taking the time to fill that out and to share a little bit about who you are as the audience. We wanted to get a better understanding of who was here in the room with us, so to speak, so that we could, tailor some of our responses knowing exactly who was here. So thank you for that. And I guess with that, let's kind of dive in here, right? So first and foremost, I just want to say, I've been in tech for a long time, and AI and machine learning was something that was kind of like brewing in the background for a long time. You'd hear about the models, you'd hear about things like, oh, Netflix uses machine learning to give you the next movie that you're going to watch, that sort of thing. And so it was something that was like in my consciousness, but sort of not at the forefront. And then suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, it seems to be everywhere. Like AI is it. And it's on front pages of newspapers and, the proverbial newspapers across the world, headlines, et cetera. How did we go from it being sort of the background noise in tech to front page news? Jane, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure, I'd love to, mainly because I felt like I was in the maelstrom of when all the launches happened. So I will give huge amount of credit to OpenAI and ChatGPT, because what that launch was, it created a visceral experience for people to realize what they could personally do with AI. And I think there's a really big difference between knowing that there was AI engine driving, giving you feedback on what shows to watch, and even like autocorrect and subtle things that you've already been interacting with. And many of us have been touching and experiencing AI in a more of a background way. We accept it like, oh, it's making incremental value to our lives. And then all of a sudden, here's an interface in which we could ask it questions, and it could do things that we always wanted it to do, like write this out for me because I'm an awful writer, right? or re-summarize it, give it to me in point form, or generate images because it's hard for me to draw. So it just literally became accessible to people in a really personal way. And I think that vision launched it everywhere. And that's kind of, I think, the foundation for leading up to not just the consumer side, and then that drove into the enterprise, where for the longest time, many enterprises have been developing and creating their own language models. And it's been a lot of work, training and finding the right resources. And then all of a sudden they got this revelation thinking, there's models out there that have been invented that I could leverage, and I could just add on a little bit more on the custom modeling, and ta-da, my work is now so much faster, better, and more creative, right? So I believe that's really where it launched, and now it's a matter of like, how can we be creative on figuring out what else can we do with it?
I love that you're demystifying it, and that's, I think, really important here, because there is a lot of fear out there. I think when it comes to AI, there are a lot of headlines that are doom and gloom and all scary, when in fact there are so many wonderful applications of AI, and they can make us so much better at our jobs. So, you know, people really do fear the unknown, and this is a new technology, even though it's been brewing in the background for quite some time, right? So there's all this hand wringing and fear mongering happening. So how do you think we can help move people from fear to hope when it comes to AI? And how can we continue to demystify AI so that people understand that it's not the enemy, that it's actually something that they can leverage to take themselves to the next level in their career? I could maybe, Carly, do you want to try your hand at that one?
Sure. So I will say, like, this is a new technology, right? So when something new comes out that is disruptive, it is scary. Like, it was scary to me, you know, like there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of headlines out there that, you know, you read the headline, you think you read the whole article, you know, and then you're scared, right? Like, we all do it. For me, I was also interested in, like, I work with partners, right? So I was kind of more interested in like governance and security. And there's a lot of information out there, not just from the Google perspective. Yes, like Google has come out with their kind of framework. They have like a lot of information you can read on what they're doing to, you know, secure and govern AI. And then also, you know, like, again, just kind of like from a macro level, there's things that, like, you know, private sector and then also government's doing as well. That's interesting, right? Like, hey, how are we going to meet this challenge and work together towards it, right? So like President Biden last week came out with an executive order, I think it was, around AI. And that was really helpful to me, right? Because he very clearly spelled out what they're looking at, you know, what the challenges are, et cetera, which helped me like ground myself, right? And like, okay, this is a big change, it's coming, but we're going to grab it, we're going to work together with it. I think on, you know, a personal note also, kind of figuring out, like, for me, you know, where can AI help me in my day-to-day, right? And there's a lot of information out there. So seeing examples from customers and then also from partners and how they're leveraging it made it real and less scary to me. Like, take, for example, I just had a CMO from one of our partners posted that she's been using AI to create like mock-ups for ads. And that was like a really like easy way for me to kind of understand how she's leveraging this tool in a way that made it, you know, again, kind of like less scary and more like a real application on how it's going to help enable us to do better and be more productive in our roles.
I love that. I think we need to continue demystifying it and figuring out ways we can incorporate it into our daily lives. I know I myself have used it to help me organize different elements and research for my podcast. So it's been really, really great, especially for someone like me who is a little bit disorganized, I'll be honest. So there you go. But it's been really instrumentally effective for me. So I hope that we can keep spreading the word. Jane, do you have any additional thoughts with regard to bringing people out of the fear and into the hope?
I think all new technology, there will always be an element of fear. And I also think that we should have an element of caution on how we approach AI. There's concerns around safety and privacy and hallucinations that have come up many times. As as we work with customers on really analyzing and looking at how they want to use some of the language models that they have access to, they're concerned about data leakage, right? How do you ensure that proprietary information about their customers are not being exposed and taught back into the models? So there's a lot of that happening to focus and prevent those things from happening in most of the large model creation. But I do anchor in with Carly on, I think it's great that our government has created a definition and a guideline of what we want to approach, because we need those types of structures. I think it's really ambitious, but I love the structure that it applied, and it's going to take time, but just know that rather than being afraid of it, figure out the boundaries that's going to make you comfortable and use it for how it's going to benefit you. Because there's a lot of great benefits from using the AI technologies available today.
I totally agree. And I also was heartened by the executive order. I think it's a good thing to try and corral. And also, if people just get familiar with it, it will help, and it will go a long way in terms of making us all feel more comfortable, right? So thank you both. So, the tech industry is pretty famous for being male dominated. And this gap still persists today in 2023, even though we know that diverse teams produce better outcomes and more innovation. Couple stats for you. So in 2022, women held just 16% of engineering roles and 27% of computing roles in companies in the US. There are wide gender gaps that currently exist in AI specifically. So for example, UNESCO found that only 18% of machine learning presenters at conferences and 20% of professors working in AI were women. We know that when biased data is put into these models, biased data is the output. So given the disparity in representation of women in this space, when building and using machine learning, how do we detect and then avoid reflecting these biases in these training sets? Kalina, do you have a sense of this?
Sure. So there's kind of a few different answers that I have to this. In an ideal world, you would simply gather diverse and representative training data. But it's not really that easy. I mean, what we can do is try to collect data from diverse sources, include diverse voices, be selective about what you do and don't include in your training data, which would require filtering the data as it's coming in, not just blindly taking everything from Twitter, but maybe deciding, I don't want it when people use racist or sexist language. To do that kind of filtering, you do have to know in advance, what it is that you're trying to avoid. And even when you do your best with that, things will always fall through the cracks. There are some instances where maybe you really do want everything from Twitter, including all of the, bad language, in which case, there's not really a way to filter that out, and that doesn't really solve that problem. So another piece to this puzzle is human oversight. It's not just a matter of an automated pipeline, or it shouldn't be, of data to machine learning to outcome. There should be testing that happens in the loop. A human should, make sure that when they're using the model, or do some testing of what's actually going into it to try to catch these things, because the automated systems won't just do all the filtering, even if you put it in there. And having diverse teams is really beneficial in trying to do that. If you have a white man that's doing quality assurance, even with the best intentions, there are some things that simply might not occur to him to search for or filter out or use the tool in a particular way. So having diverse teams to do that is also really, really, really important. So kind of the two things to realize is that data is and will always be biased, because our world is biased. So we can only remedy that to the farthest extent possible, as the data is coming in, and then also just always including human in the loop and having as diverse of a group in doing that as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, even the best diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that have the perfect policies, they don't always work, right? Because people come in with their own specific unconscious biases. And so it's just kind of how it is. But I do see incremental change in the industry. And I think we have to celebrate the small wins, and they'll end up being something pretty massive over time. So thanks, Kalina. And, diving a little bit more into this disparity between the genders here, according to McKinsey, 50% of women in tech actually end up leaving by age 35, which was a mind-blowing statistic that I found. So how do we encourage more women to participate in tech to begin with? And then once they're here with us in the industry, how do we keep them, right? So Jane, I know you're pretty passionate about the subject. Do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. I do want to anchor on the statistics that we talk about, like the number of speakers who tend to be male, or the professors who in academia who are male. The people that I work with, the people that are on my team, and the customers that we work with, and maybe it is because I'm in the Bay Area, I actually see a lot of diversity, not 50%, not equal per se, but I do see a higher number as a percentage. In my team, my data analytics teams, more than 30-40% of them are women or engineers. Awesome. Of 2 of the 5 AI engineers on my team are women. And some of the leading AI kind of thought leaders who are bringing leadership like ideas together and creating webinars internally at Google are women. So, and then when I work with certain customers, I go out for lunch with them, and it's an entire team of ML engineers who are all women. So I see that a lot, and it's wonderful to see. And so just know that, especially in this area, we do see a lot of women taking up the opportunity because it lends into data. Many of them have already started on their journey into data science, and that has data has a natural gravity towards AI because you need data to train things and to extract information. So I see this particular space being an awesome opportunity because it's so nascent. It's still very early on.
Love that.
Right?
Love that.
There's many paths to get there.
Fantastic. Yeah, it is nascent. I think it's really kind of open season and greenfield for people to get into this of any age, of any gender. So it's really exciting. And you point out something really, really important, which is that these statistics are industry wide. You can find places where that isn't the case, right? You can find places that are doing it really exceptionally well, as you just described. So very, very good to call out that. Thanks, Jane. Kalina, do you have additional thoughts on how to get people interested in tech and how to get them to stay once they're here?
I think Jane covered it.
All right.
To add.
I was inspired by Jane's answer. I got to say that was awesome. It's
Maureen,
not all bad.
I don't think I answered your question about how to encourage women to stay in tech.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
And hopefully that gave you the context of, I think there's a lot of women who stay. And then the broader issue about why they leave is that they end up, there's many obligations that they have where they feel like it's a lot of stress and they need to balance things out.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that, especially with the ability to work from home and some flexibility of not having to go back into the office, that gives women the option of being present at work, but also taking care of the obligations that allow them to actually cover on both fronts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that remote work was one of the best things for advancement for females everywhere in all industries, right? So I hope we can continue to see that grow rather than contract with a lot of the return to the office type engagements that are environments that are happening right now. So there are a lot of stories out there about AI and the potential to impact repetitive, sort of more entry-level jobs in the industry, but I'm curious how you see, or if you see, and how you see AI impacting your roles specifically in tech. So maybe Carly, could you tell us a little bit about how your role has shifted with the use of AI?
Sure. Well, I think it's coming out from Google, but I'm really hoping they're making advancements in AI for slide decks because, gosh, I need some help on that front.
You and me both.
So as far as what I've seen and kind of like within the partner org too, is that you can just get to answers a lot easier, right? It takes it from being like AI/ML, more of like a tech heavy specific technology you need to learn from the inside out, to getting business income or outcomes and getting content needed, like what is going to help you make decisions faster in an easier way. So like I've used that right now where we have basically a chat bot where I can load up content on the back end and make it really easily searchable for me, right? So if I need to find, information on a specific partner, I can load up again, like decks that they've given me. And then I can again have this kind of like crazy like AI bot right next to me, almost an assistant, to help me find information faster. So I would say like that's where I've seen it. for as far as like, partners are concerned, they're building it into all different types of solutions, right? Like a really good example is Wendy's. We have partners who've engaged with Wendy's on building out their what is it? It's like their menu bot kind of. And so, partners are really thinking about how to weave in AI into all of their solutions to just, make better solutions for basically the end customers.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. I'm also curious, maybe Sonya, can you tell us a little bit more about how you use AI in your role?
Sure. I don't know that it's so much in answering the question is so much about particularly my role, but maybe the roles that I see in manufacturing space. So I think I love that we were talking about demystifying AI or in my world, right, this tech adoption in general. It's not lost on me that manufacturing still has kind of an archaic dinosaur perception to it. But you would not believe the facilities I walk through and the amazing amount of technology within 4 walls of a manufacturing facility. So, I think when we talk about fear and demystifying, right, one of the things that we're always talking about is tech adoption, AI specifically, right, going to eliminate entry-level positions or frontline work, right? These are folks who are going in every day. There's no work from home opportunity for them, and eliminating their jobs completely changes their lives, right? But what we know through research of our own at Conexus and a lot of other research on tech adoption, and AI is always a part of that, is that it's actually quite the opposite. So bringing in tech adoption allows an opportunity for those like repetitive, maybe unsafe, heavy manual labor jobs to be automated in a whatever way, is really beneficial for that position. And those folks move into new positions, which is actually an opportunity for them to change skill set, upskill, but also increase wages. And so what we found is for every position that has impacted, right, by any form of tech adoption, is that there's actually 5 new positions added to a company. So instead of eliminating, we're seeing actually growth within the manufacturing space. I think kind of the other side of this, right, is, and I wish I could share this all with you, but I can't quite yet. I got those secret insights on an AI survey that we just completed within the state. So we surveyed about 170 employers in Indiana, most of them manufacturers. 55% of them have already implemented AI in some sort of sector of the manufacturing facility at this point. And it's really, really close to 100% have plans within the next 3 years to implement some sort of AI adoption. So we're seeing a huge increase in that rate. But I think kind of the interesting part of this is it's not maybe where you would expect. So when we ask people, where are you implementing these things? Well, there's product and service development. So engineering, R&D, the manufacturing floor, of course, we see that all the time. We're looking at quality, computer visioning, things like that. But the 2 that surprised me the most really are some of the service and internal operations. So we call that back office for us, operations, but then also marketing and sales. So as you're talking about things like PowerPoint decks, things like that. And so I think when you ask the question, right, about how does AI, or let's just go tech adoption, right, in general impact people, I think we think oftentimes entry-level positions, frontline workers, very hands-on, maybe manual. But I think the reality is it's all of us that will be impacted. And like Carly said, even in my own role, finding ways to access information faster, say things better. I also live in the world of acronyms. Like, how do you explain to somebody all of what does generative AI mean? It's like, you get it, right? But does the person, does your neighbor, when you're talking to them, understand? It's like, you just go to Chat GPT and ask them for an explanation, and they provide you some layman's terms, and you're like, okay, great. It's probably better than I could ever do.
Wow, that was a lot of really hopeful and awesome information. I mean, the using of AI actually giving you new jobs, creating new jobs, that's incredible. And also the amount of the adoption that you've seen in the manufacturing space, that's wild. I guess it's far bigger than I would have imagined. So I love how hopeful all of that you just shared with us, Sonya, was. And speaking of hope, there are men who are listening in to this presentation today, to this panel discussion. How can they be strong allies to us in AI? And does that allyship actually look different depending on what role they hold in an organization? So if they're an executive versus a middle manager versus an independent contributor. Maybe Carly or Kalina, will you weigh in on this?
Sure, I can jump in first. I have lots of thoughts on this. So the first thing that I'd like to recommend is, amplify women. I'm sure most of the people on this call have experienced a situation where you've been in a meeting and you express an idea, you say something and you get completely steamrolled over. And, the conversation just keeps going as if you hadn't said anything. In the extreme case of that, sometimes, a man will say the same thing later in the meeting and then get credit for the idea where you haven't. This is a common enough situation that this happens. So, one easy way for someone, whether they're an individual contributor or, in a leadership position to help with situations like that is to, even say something as simple as, I agree with what Maureen said. Or, when somebody else does say that same idea later, say, oh, that sounds like, what Carly was talking about earlier. Just a simple little statement like that makes all the difference. Makes people respect women, pay attention to what we have to say. So just such a small thing like that can be immensely helpful. Something that's maybe a little bit harder is standing up to other men and people that are, being aggressive or expressing microaggressions. Sometimes it can be, uncomfortable to call someone out in a meeting, but, maybe just afterwards in a one-on-one saying like, hey, what you said, was maybe a little troubling or like not cool. You don't have to make it a huge argument or a big thing, but just speak up, please do. And that'll be immensely helpful. The higher you are in an organization, obviously, the more power you have. So the more weight your words will hold, even something as simple as like, hey, that wasn't a cool thing to say, or like, I agree with what Jane said, will carry more weight. But, obviously the bigger things that you can do is promote women, hire women, and also mentor women. We do have a leaky pipeline problem where there's not a lot of women in leadership. So the men that are higher up, it would be immensely helpful if you did mentor the younger women in your company and provide answers to their questions, do a little bit of hand-holding and help raise them to your level.
That's excellent, actionable advice for the men listening. Thank you so much. I love that, Kalina. Carly, do you have anything to add to that?
That was beautiful. That was really nice, Kalina.
It was great.
It really was. I think, in addition, just holding each other accountable, right? Like there's nothing worse than showing up to a DEI event and it's just all women, right? Like, yes. or marginalized groups, right? Like it doesn't feel good. And that's kind of where like I've seen it, right? Pretty openly. So holding each other accountable and then also showing up and then just making space, right? Like similar to what you said, like I'm almost like a big fan of just having a timer per person, like on these conference calls to make sure not one group is more dominant than the other and everyone's being, able to kind of like express where they're coming from or their thoughts. And then I think like, really making, again, space for women or other groups, right? So, like at Google Cloud, we have a coffee club that's like women mentorship program where, men have been executive sponsors and have helped promote and then also highlight the great work that the women have done. And I really enjoyed that. Like it was a really good way to connect with others. It wasn't all women, it was also men in leadership too. But again, just making a safe space for women there.
That's awesome. I really love that. Yeah, these are all really good ideas for people to adopt, and it's easy. You can start today, right? You can take these tips and go forward in your tech and organization and implement them really right after this discussion ends. So that's great. Thank you. So women, yeah.
Can I say one thing on this?
Please go ahead.
I'll go at this from the viewpoint of people who are like frontline workers, right? People who are on the ground, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. I just read a story about there's a truck driver shortage, right? So I also work in logistics, and there's not enough there's not enough truck drivers in general, but there's not enough women truck drivers. And I read a story about a woman who had all of the credentials, CDLA license, whole thing, could not get hired because there was no female driver to train her. And so I think one of the things that we don't think about often enough are those frontline workers who are women who carry extra weight to train other women to bring them into the fold, which I think is the thing we can't forget. I think there are people in positions that we ask to carry more weight without any form of compensation. And I don't necessarily mean pay. Pay is great, right?
We'll
but
take it.
compensation comes in a lot of forms. And I think that if you are, I mean, in Indiana, only women make up 17% of the manufacturing workforce here. That's very little for a state that's the third of our GDP comes from manufacturing. There's a truck driver shortage, things like that. When we're asking, and there are positions, right? I hate to say it, right? But a female truck driver must train another female truck driver. That's how it goes. There's all sorts of HR implications, right? For a male training a female truck driver on long haul trucking. So I understand this, right? But I think the thing when we think about how do men help support and become allies, especially within our frontline workers, like make sure the women who you're elevating as key trainers or people to bring people into the fold are compensated in some way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for jumping in there with that. That's really important information to share. And I think we need to really think about the representation in many different ways. And thanks for calling out all the specific stark statistics from the state of Indiana. That's really resonant. So, we talked a little bit about mentorship in some of our past questions and answers. And I host a podcast that's all about getting older in the tech industry. So I think about generations a lot at work. And recently, Adobe put out a survey that asked Gen Z about mentorship. And 83% of those respondents in Gen Z said that they really desperately wanted a mentor, but only 52% of those individual respondents said that they actually currently had one. So how can we actually encourage people women specifically in AI, to mentor those who are coming up the ranks? And when should that start? Should that be something that happens in college, or maybe should it come even earlier in their lives? So Sonya, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm such a data nerd. I feel like I should be an AI tech.
Okay, let's do it.
So I find this really interesting. Prior to my role at Conexus, I worked in workforce development for about 8 years, and mentorship is always a conversation. Honestly, I mean, to just be quite frank, if you're mentoring individuals in college or at any, early career, that's wonderful. Mentorship really should probably start much earlier than that. And the reason I say that, one, I'm smack dab in the millennial era, but I had to look up ages of Gen Z, which made me which is currently age 13 to 27. So you have middle schoolers through graduate school and or early career, right? So that's a pretty wide breadth of age. But what we know within that age range is, one, college going rate has declined significantly across the board since 2016. So we have students, right, in middle school, high school, who are looking for what the next step is, but they don't know what the next step is. And lots of students are leaving high school, not going to college, which I'm okay with, right? But what's their plan? And so I think for any of us, right, we have a little bit of a responsibility to have conversations. And I think even as part of those conversations is, what does mentorship really look like? I think we think of it as this big, hairy, audacious, task that we take on, where we're going to work with a student, 5 hours a week, every week for 20 weeks. It's like, who has that kind of time? But I think the reality for most of us, right, is we've probably all had conversations with individuals that had a profound impact on us, that maybe happened once, maybe twice. Maybe it was a little more formal, and maybe not, but I think when we think about middle schoolers, right, we're talking about career exploration. What do you do every day? How do they get involved in that particular work? Everybody knows Google, right? So what do you do within Google? How do you get a job within Google? You know, kind of that middle to end of high school, it's kind of starting to talk about what's your plan. So you've got a little bit of career exploration going on. You've got a little bit of what's your plan. And then those that do go to college, which is about at the 50% mark right now, have, you know, I mean, you get into a little bit more detailed, nuanced students, right? They kind of choose a path, you know where they're going. You can maybe even provide a lot more in-depth mentorship than you could before. So I think we all have like a little bit of responsibility to mentor somebody along the way. I think it's figuring out what does mentorship really look like and what can we offer.
Love that. Love that. I really love that you call out the fact that it doesn't have to be this huge thing, mentorship, right? It can be a one-off conversation that you have in the hallway. It doesn't have to be a formal program that is implemented at your organization for you to actually engage in mentorship activities with people around you. So I love that call out. Does anyone else on the panel want to weigh in specifically on mentorship and how to do it?
I have a hand raised.
Oh, I didn't even notice. There we go.
Just raise it now.
I'm glad you want to weigh in.
You know, Sonya, like your comments are spot on about mentorship. The one thing that I'm realizing over time is that foundationally, women need to be, they need to be encouraged to have a lot more confidence. And some of that confidence comes from self-acknowledgement that they are amazing. And I literally went through a session yesterday called I Am Remarkable. It launched from Google, I believe in 2016. Now it's a global phenomena. And we tend to bring it to different customers. We also bring it to different organizations. And the premise is really simple. Women should celebrate the fact that they individually are amazing. And you should be able to declare yourself, I am remarkable because of the multitude of things that they've accomplished. And I did mention it to my daughter. She's in high school. And she said, that would be really interesting for us to bring it into high school, because girls are discouraged even at a much early age, even in middle school, to be a little bit more quiet or don't ask them more pushier questions. So I'd love to change that mentality, to give them the encouragement and the courage to really realize like they are remarkable and they should be able to express themselves. And through that path, they could have the exploration and ask for coaching and ask for mentorship in whoever they want to approach, because they shouldn't be shy about asking for more.
I could not possibly love that more. That is fantastic. I think that should absolutely be a part of the curriculum. I love that Google is pushing that forward. It's something that women have a hard time with, and it's a cultural thing, and it does start very, very early in life. So I absolutely love that idea. Thank you for sharing. And Kalina, I think your hand is raised as well.
It is physically this time. Yeah.
Physically, yeah.
Young in age, I think, you know, we've been talking about middle school and high school going back as early as that. Last week, I actually talked to a group of third graders. And I think, you know, we can go way back, and it doesn't necessarily need to look like mentorship where it's like a one-on-one conversation or ongoing relationship. But I've actually been doing this for a few years now, where I've volunteered. I reached out to my local school district and just said like, hey, I'm a woman in tech. Like, can I come talk to your students? I think representation is just so important, especially at, you know, really young ages, that you don't necessarily need to form even a relationship or like an ongoing conversation with young kids, but just kind of put yourself out there and be like, hi, you know, here's the cool things that I do. And just them seeing you as a woman, you know, doing that, you know, will hopefully encourage them to, you know, see themselves in positions like that in the future. So I'd just like to encourage everyone to go back even younger. You know, even if they don't, it's very hard to explain data visualization to third graders. But I just showed them my cool videos, and they, you know, they're very flashy, and they probably didn't understand everything, but it was, I also had like just a little arts and crafts activity for them to do that was related to the work. So there's ways to do it, and I really do think it is worthwhile.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love, I mean, that's just such a beautiful story of being able to engage with people at a much younger age. I love that. You know, I have small children too. And the concept of someone from the tech industry coming in and speaking to my daughter, I love that idea of her getting exposure, because you're so right. The representation really is crucial. And, you know, we need to create opportunities for that to happen, because it doesn't always necessarily happen organically. So I commend you for putting that out there yourself, Kalina. I love that. Love that so much. This is honestly, I love this conversation. I'm so, my heart is warmed. I'm very, very happy to hear of how you all are thinking of mentorship in this realm and how we encourage people to get into this industry. So I think we're actually approaching Q&A now. So our wonderful audience has actually been feeding up questions for the panelists. So I'm going to go and find one of those for us to tackle. All right, let's see. One moment, I'm finding one of those. And thank you all so much for being such a great audience and interacting the way in which you have. That's so great. Okay, so I have one here. I believe, and okay, it says, I'm a mom of 2 toddlers managing the complete transformation of a human capital management solution for a government entity. Do you have any personal pro tips to share on how you stay organized? Have you tapped into some of the new AI tools, accepting all recommendations? Anyone have an answer for that? All right, Carly, go for it. I see you raised your hand digitally.
So this is not business related, but just kind of making things easier is, you know, as a mom, I've used Bard for meal planning. So
Oh, cool. That's a great idea.
Nothing with business, you know, next to business, but it does help, right? When you're trying to balance everything, anything you can do to find those shortcuts to make things easier, use AI for.
I love that. I actually think I'm going to steal that tip maybe tonight, because meal planning is the bane of my existence. Love that. What a great idea. All right, I'm finding the next question here. If anyone else has something to add, please go ahead, but I'm pulling out another question right now. All right, let's see here. How about recommendations on how to skill up in AI for someone in customer success? I want to stay in customer success, but I am interested in how AI could impact customer success. All right.
I could take a bit of that on, and I would need a little bit of clarification, because for me, the definition of customer success, there's multiple ways in which you could interpret that role. The one area that I for sure know is going through a massive transformation is in the area of customer support. And almost every single one of my customers who are in that area, or who have touch points where customers come to their site and are asking questions, almost all of that interface is getting converted into some sort of a chat-generated AI interface. So things like, you know, summarizing all the content that's available on their website, so that when a person asks a question, it's very simple and clear, and they get directly to that answer. That gets solved. But from a customer's interface support standpoint, the individual who supports customers, the engagement from the end customer back to the answer through the customer support system is going to dramatically change. So more of the mundane, traditional, kind of the vanilla type of answers, that's already going to be covered by the chatbots. Where it's going to be more interesting for the customer success agents is to tap into your expertise and the nuances that the bots are not going to be capable of providing, right? So wherever industry you are in, if you're in the space of providing customer success and support, really understand how your customers' adoption of AI is going to transform, and figure out how to tap into your knowledge and providing the guidance and structure that it's not captured by AI. And that's the extra level of advantage and support that you could provide back to your customers and your company.
Love it. Thank you, Jane. All right, I think we might have time for one more question here. I'm pulling it out. All right. If If I wanted to implement AI into my business in 2024, what do I need to do? What are the first steps I can take? This probably would be a good one for maybe Heidi to answer.
Sure, I can take it. It really just depends on what your business is and where you're trying to take it and what the use cases are for your industry. I mean, getting into AI is as simple as Googling it, right? Just being at Google. I mean, I use that tool more than I probably should, and even Bard. But I also think if you want to implement AI in your business, I think it's reaching out to your network. I think it's reaching out to organizations like ClearObject that can help you with some of the workshops, or getting to understand, how can AI transform my business, and talking to other folks that have used it and have been successful. So, I mean, there's a wide variety of ways. I mean, one thing that ClearObject does is we offer free workshops so that we can come in and ascertain your needs and figure out exactly, who, what, when, where, and where it can fit in. Where, if you may think it may be marketing, but then, to a couple of the panelist points, it could be in manufacturing or something on the line. There's just so many different caveats that can go into this. So we do offer a free workshop to be able to help customers with that. I know Google can lean into a lot of those things as well to help educate companies on how to implement AI in 2024. Sonya.
I was going to say, well, that's a great explanation. I don't know the technical end of how you implement AI. That's not my role. But I think one of the things that I do see, kind of to answer this question that Lorian posed, is implementing is one thing, and that's great. You've got to figure out how you use it. I see so many times in a manufacturing facility or a logistics facility, they're like, well, we collect the data. And it's like, well, what do you do with the data? Like, well, we don't know yet. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great, but what comes next? And so I think as you're thinking through these plans, sometimes, right, we get a little flashy, like, oh, I'm going to implement this thing, which is great. There's a purpose for it. And I think you got to figure out what your purpose is. And even if you implement and you're looking at the next step, okay, what do we do with this implementation process? And it's not right. You may have to tweak it along the way, right? But make sure you've got a purpose. You're doing something with it. All too often, I see people implement, collect, they have it, but then they don't really know why or what they're getting from it. And I think that why and what you're getting from it and how you improve your own business processes, it is why you're doing it. You just have to know what those are.
Yeah, great point. Anyone else want to dive into that question?
I was going to give the same answer as you, Heidi. Just workshop with ClearObject, or someone who can help, who has done implementations before of AI workloads. There's a deep dive, or again, just like a general workshop to kind of figure out which use cases make sense to your business. But that's a really good first step, definitely.
Ideation is one of the most critical parts of using Gen AI.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so many discussions with customers asking, oh, what should we be doing with it? And what's interesting is if they ask themselves internally, they could also at least have a foundational knowledge of where everyone can leverage AI best within their industry, within their space. And then once you go into a workshop, you could flush it out in a much more clear way, versus walking in without at least an idea of what options you may have. And there's lots of discussions already across every vertical, every industry, about how Gen AI can be used. So the resources are available as well.
Awesome. Well, we have 1 minute left, so I definitely want to thank our panelists as well as Maureen. This was absolutely awesome, very inspirational. I learned a ton from you guys, so I can't thank you enough for taking the time out, as well as our audience for joining us as well, and learning more about how women in AI are shaping the world. So I appreciate everyone's time. We did record this, so we'll be sending that out as well. And if you have any questions, we're here to help you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.